telling me they love this new Samoa Joe thing. They want to hear me rock on it. Send us out to Wale. Shout out Rosenberg. Stu Joe. It's the Super showing up like Lex Luger. Back in the fold, throwing out gold like Medusa. Podcast steadfast. Shout out to Fedcast. Kill your whole legacy like the Fed did the bash. Shanzi in the shotgun. Force, that's the other one. Three Musketeers up in this here like Jonathan. Mudo Hashimoto, Ernest Matthews, he like Hase. Parliament funk, burning a hammer like Kabashi. Come on. Super show flow. The Super show flow. I'm about to wreck the party with my Super show flow. I'm about to wreck the party with my Super show flow. Let's go!
IWGP インターコンチネンタル史上最大の男がついに AJ スタイル世界が待ち望んだドリームマッチここに実現
余計なものはもういらないんじゃないかと飾りだとか味付けだとかベルトすらもなくても成立してしまうんじゃないかと思って
Nakamura is Nakamura. There's only one.
唯一無二プライムな男たちによる最上級の戦い
AJ Styles and Nakamura, two men who have never had a one-on-one match in their career with each other.
素直にその感動を味わいたいなと
この時代この場所でしか見ることのできないベストインザワールド 1.4 はプロレス行こうぜ
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Super Show 8. Myself, the Grime Minister Luke Force, the Three Musketeers of Wrestle Talk Radio are back together once again. Shotgun Shan and Sean Cunningham. Happy New Year, first of all, guys.
Happy New Year to you, sir, and Happy New Year to Sean. It's going to be a great 2016, I think, by the way it's starting out anyway.
Yeah, Happy New Year to both of you, and it's going to be a busy time for the next little while.
Dude, it's been a busy time. 2016 has already been one of the most newsworthy years in recent memory.
True.
So we're gonna get through all that, of course. But first of all, Sean, I know you were not there for the Christmas show in terms of at Offensive Studios.
No.
But what did you think of the final product? How'd you like the Christmas show this year?
The Christmas show was awesome. And I just want to thank everybody who listened and took the time to be part of that, because that was one heck of a party that you guys threw.
Best Christmas show ever?
Yeah, I would definitely think so.
Shotgun Shan, you were there. You were recovering a little bit. Your voice was a little shaky, so you took on the role of DJ, filling in for DJ LT, Luigi Tyrone, our brother. You did an excellent job, and I mean the crowd was really reacting to pretty much everything you did that night. What was your memories, and how do you chalk up the whole experience?
First off, I'd say it was a great crowd. It was an amazing night. Definitely our best Christmas party. Most of it was a blur. I was just trying to keep up. To be honest, the people on the dance floor were one step ahead of me, and so I was always trying to find something to keep them happy. So it was a great night. I didn't get to see enough of the people that were there that I really wanted to see. Bumped into a couple people, but overall the experience was fantastic. And next year I may step out of the DJ booth just so I can do a bit more mingling.
You did show me the picture that you got, the selfie there with Sal Balomo.
Yeah.
What a sweater you were wearing, first of all. God, I've never seen you wear anything so tight.
Well, buddy, it's the way it worked out that night, and I was regretting it because it got hot in that booth, man.
Did you let your kids wash your sweater again?
Yeah.
They put it in the dryer, and that thing came out 3 or 4 sizes too small. But anyway,
I think so.
The picture looked like it was one of those things that should have been dry cleaned. What are you doing?
Well,
I don't know, man. Why do they make things that have to be dry cleaned? I don't understand tags.
Yeah.
Do any of us?
No.
No.
Sal Baloma really seemed to have that Fujiwara thing going on too, because when Sal Baloma was around back in the day, he was probably like 25 or 30, and he looked like he was about 55. And now that he's about, how old would he be, Sean? You're the numbers guy.
Oh, jeez.
Is Sal Baloma well into his 60s by now?
I'm guessing he's in his 60s.
Now that he's in his 60s, he looks like he's in his 40s. So he's one of those guys who looked old when he was young, and now that he's old, he's starting to look younger. It's really
the whole
interesting.
Benjamin Button thing going on.
Well, that too.
There you go.
So guys, 2016 has started with a bang. We're about 1 week in now, and
the world blew up.
The world blew up, and we're gonna try to make sense of everything going on, because there's a lot of information out there, and I think this is a good way to streamline it to everybody and sort of let them know where things stand right now. This was supposed to be, and it was in a lot of ways, and in most ways, New Japan's week, the biggest show of the year, Wrestle Kingdom 10. It was not on pay-per-view this year in North America. I was awake for the show. I did watch it from 3 a.m. until 7 a.m. And
you're crazy, man. I'm just gonna say that.
Well, if you would actually get up off your ass and do the same thing, you'd realize I'm not the only one.
Well, I know you're not the only one. I just don't have the ability to get.
No, I'm joking, but I'm saying.
Did you stay up until 3 a.m, or did you go to sleep and wake up at 3 a.m?
Started. No. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went to sleep around 10.
Yeah.
With my wife. This year I was upfront about it. Last year I tried to sneak it. I didn't tell her about it. I just pretended like it was a normal night. We're going to bed. And I was snoring like crazy that night last year. She kicked me out. She sent me to the other room to sleep in the other room. And then around 1 o'clock, I set my alarm because I think it started at 2 last year. So I set my alarm for 1 thinking I'm going to be so smart. She's going to be asleep. So I set the alarm for 1 and I start sort of tiptoeing down the staircase, which is very creaky anyways, as it is. And I made it maybe 1 step, and my wife, completely conscious, not sleeping at all, on her phone, is like, "Hun, what are you doing?"
Busted.
I very quickly had to, string something together, but in the end, I just had to come clean and say, "You know what, hun? It's Wrestle Kingdom 9. It's on pay-per-view. I'm going to be up all night, and just don't mind me." So she would just kind of laughed at it. And this year I just was straight up. I told her like a week or 2 in advance. Wrestle Kingdom 10 is on January the 4th. I'm not going to sleep that night. So just don't mind me. So anyways, I was up. A lot of people were up. The Warzone 2008, which is our Twitter handle.
Yes.
It was really cool because I was interacting with guys that were in the Tokyo Dome as they was like after their matches. You know what I mean?
That's very cool.
I'm talking to Ricochet. I'm having a conversation with Ricochet. I guess maybe before we get into the show, we need to sort of talk about what happened in terms of what we didn't see coming for this year. And that is the fact that everybody knows by now, on Monday, which was January the 4th, AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, and Shinsuke Nakamura all approached Gedo and put in their notice that they would be leaving New Japan for the WWE. Now, you guys know, I mean, this is not, although it was surprising, it's not totally out of the blue. I think we had talked about this, Shan, maybe a month or 2 ago about Shinsuke. And maybe a few months before that, I had talked about AJ. I mean, he tried out before he went to New Japan. They didn't want him. Or I don't know that he tried out, but, he tried to get into WWE. They didn't want him at that point. Shortly after the G1 last year, not 2015, but 2014, that amazing G1 where AJ had all those awesome matches. Shortly after that, the word I was hearing was that they'd totally changed their tune on AJ and they wanted him. Unfortunately, he was locked in at that point. So, again, these aren't completely out of the blue. Carl Anderson, I mean, I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me that much. Doc Gallows, he's been there before. But guys, I mean, first of all, just quickly your reactions, and then we can sort of get through where things stand right now. Shotgun Shan, you want to go first on this one?
It's one of those weird feelings, isn't it? Because I hate to see him leave New Japan. I love to see him in WWE. I love the feeling that there's a huge shakeup going on. I hope that New Japan lands on its feet, without Nakamura and without the presence of AJ and obviously Gallows and Anderson. But, the feeling I have the question I always have now, I mean, you were talking about it right now, how WWE wasn't hot on AJ before. They are hot on him now. I just kind of wonder what happened. You know, I mean, AJ's always been a top guy, fantastic performer. So, you know, I mean, I'm curious. I'd like to hear the stories of what suddenly caught their eye. You know, my feelings are this could be an incredible gain for WWE if everything's handled right. I mean, that's really, these guys coming in have to be handled properly. And we're going to get into, you know, how thin the upper end of the WWE roster is heading into WrestleMania. There's a real opportunity to make these guys into huge parts of WWE. But it could also be fumbled if they don't do it right. So it's a bit of trepidation. I'm excited, but I have a lot of trepidation about it.
I read this and I'm like, wow. And then I thought about it for, you know, a couple minutes like we all did. First, I have a couple questions. One, who would have brokered this in terms of them talking to WWE or vice versa? You know, who contacted who? Two, how much of this is a couple of the American guys just wanting to go home after being in Japan for a couple of years? With Nakamura, of course, being the exception, being the Japanese guy.
Yeah, Shinsuke's the different one because, again, he's relocating from Japan to the U.S. And he's got a wife and everything, so she's going to have to move over here too, completely uprooted from his friends and everything. So he's a bit of a different story. With AJ, he is a family man. He is a guy that has openly said in the press, recently and before that he is all about the place that's going to give him the most money. And when you've been over in Japan for 2 years or however long he's been, I guess about 2 years, yeah, you probably are getting to a point where you don't want to have to keep going over to Japan all the time. And you want to be able to be closer to your family, and you want to, if you have the opportunity to catch a flight home, you want to be able to take it. So with him, I mean, it's not a surprise that he wants out and that he wants to go and try the WWE thing. Gallows and Anderson, I mean, they're not a real loss to New Japan. They're not.
No.
That's not, and that's nothing against them. I just mean those guys being gone is not going to create this big void. Anderson of everybody has been the guy actually that's been there the longest. He was there. He had that big run with Giant Bernard.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you how long he's been there. I mean, when Giant Bernard was still in New Japan before he became Tenzai and then became a trainer, his tag team partner was Carl Anderson, and they were kind of like the Doc and Gallows of that time. The Anderson and Gallows of that time. I mean, they were a great team. And even before that, he had a tag team with Goto called Guns and Goto, I think. So he's been there for ages.
Well, they talked about in his match, I was thinking his 8th consecutive Wrestle Kingdom.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Eight Wrestle Kingdoms. So, I mean, that's a hell of a long time to be in Japan as a gaijin. A lot of guys don't get that opportunity. So, I mean, from that standpoint, it's a big deal. But I mean, Gallows and Anderson being gone, that's, again, not going to create a big void. AJ being gone, Nakamura being gone, of course it is.
I'm curious as to how some of this got brokered. I have questions about the idea of, is you mentioned Giant Bernard, who's, you know, the head trainer of NXT right now. Did he have something to do with this? Did Finn Balor, who we know, you know, highly loved Japan and talks about it, did he have something to do with this? Did the appearance of Hattori in the summertime start to broker deals? And
that one I can guarantee you no.
But what about the other two?
I would say all of the above, besides Hattori.
Okay. Do you think any of this was motivated not just by pure speculation, but maybe moved along by the realization that they're losing so many guys to injuries right now on an already thin roster where they've already been criticized for not elevating guys when they should have, and leaving things all on the shoulders of Cena and a few other guys, and on the shoulders now of Reigns, which I'm not sure he can handle that pressure. You know, do you think that some of this was at least sped up by the fact that they went, crap, we're going into WrestleMania and we're missing so many guys, and we're going to get into that major injury in a few minutes. We'll talk about that major injury that's just happened recently that's kind of blown Mania. But what do you think? Do you think that this was a reactive thing, or was it something that was always in the plans to start up in January?
I would say they were maybe... Well, here's the thing with the New Japan contracts, and this is very important. They always come due at the end of January.
Yeah. So
that doesn't really surprise me, the timing of it, because, again, this is when the contracts run out. Now, there is some talk right now that there is a bit of tampering going on, and this is something WWE is very worried about. Shinsuke is under contract right now. He has not, but to New Japan, he has not signed anything. Gallows is a free agent. He can sign He could have already signed. AJ is a free agent. He could sign, or he may have already signed. Anderson is under contract until the end of January as well. So that's the way things are in terms of the contractual status of these guys right now. But in terms of being sped along, I mean, or them maybe taking it more seriously and maybe offering a better deal or promise. I mean, there's a lot of promises being made to these guys too. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that much because you can get promised the stars and the moon and the sun and not end up getting it. That's just
Ted DiBiase.
see a lot of people, a ton of people. Yeah. So, I mean, but right now they're saying, yeah, we want to go with you guys. Regardless of the injury situation, I've been saying this for years, that WWE, as much as the youth movement is cool and it's going to pay off you down the line, you need to bring in guys right now that are ready, that are established, that the people know already, and that can be automatic main eventers right out of the gate. Because you don't have, like, you need to be able to fill the gap between now and the next generation. And so many of their guys are out, like Brian, who even knows about him.
I have this feeling that we're going to see him in the Rumble. I'm sorry, man. I know that things don't point that way, but I just have, from some of the things he's been saying.
I read something yesterday. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I read something yesterday, him saying, why won't WWE clear me? Like, he's been cleared by other doctors, yes, and WWE refuses to clear him. I wonder if right now, like you're saying, Shane, and I agree with you, if they get really desperate and clear him for Rumble.
I wonder if they've already got the plan for Rumble, and that's why he was saying what he was saying, knowing that he's coming back, at least playing along with come on and clear me. I don't know. I mean, I guess we don't know what's going to happen there, but, let me just, if you don't mind me interjecting, and I'm going to slightly move the topic just a little bit to the left here. My question is, with these guys coming in, we're talking about established stars coming in. Well, first off, AJ Styles is probably going to be more considered to be more of an established star to the uninitiated North American audience. But I think AJ Styles will get a huge reaction coming in from most of the people. Nakamura, I mean, you have to be a little more hardcore fan to know who Nakamura is. That being said, with both these guys having the skills, having the personality, having the presentation to do it, do you think WWE is going to mess with their style, or are they going to take what they've got, bring it in, and kind of let them showcase it? Because the thing that worried me when I heard about Nakamura coming in is I thought, my God, I hope that they don't mess with his style, because it's his style is one of the things that makes him so interesting to watch. What do you guys think?
You could have everybody behind you. And in the case of Nakamura especially, that guy has a lot of people in that company that are pulling for him. A lot. If you're talking, I mean, just even the roster. You know,
I agree with you there, but what about Vince? I mean, who cares?
No, exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. You know, they've got the roster that there's going to be tons of guys that are just huge marks of the guy. You've got all the people like from Hunter to Giant Bernard to William Regal. All these guys are going to be pulling for this guy. But like you say, at the end of the day, it's Vince's company. Vince can override all that. The thing with Nakamura that worries me more than anything is his physique. And that sounds ridiculous. That sounds ridiculous, but for Vince McMahon. For Vince McMahon, you know. He's not
and his quirkiness. I worry a little bit about his quirkiness. That Vince is going to be like, what's he doing? What is he supposed to be? You know what I mean? And that, I don't know, I get worried about that. But I'm hoping that Hunter has established himself well enough to be able to say it works. It already works. Don't mess with it.
I think you might be underestimating Vince a little bit when it comes to the charisma of Nakamura. Yeah. Because I don't think there's anyone I've shown him to. Anyone. Old, young, it doesn't matter. You show them that guy for a couple seconds and they're going to be like, what the hell's this? Yeah. He's special. He cannot be lumped in with the Daniel Bryans, the CM Punks, all these guys that Vince kind of, whiffed at. Because he is a charismatic, there's nobody like him. And I think that at the end of the day, Vince likes bodies. And again, that does worry me a bit. And the English promo, I mean, Nakamura's English is pretty good, but it's good like conversational. It's not necessarily, is it good in a promo? To me, you look at him, he can come in exactly the same. He doesn't need to change. He's going to have to be not so rough in the ring. That's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
But for his age...
we're talking about him having to improve his promo, and I don't agree that I don't think that he needs to be given a mouthpiece, honestly. Maybe a little bit, but I think it would diminish.
Heyman?
Heyman would be the guy. But listen, I mean, if he's got to work on his presentation as far as his promo work, and he's got to adjust his style. I know he's not booked for NXT, but do you see them sending him to NXT for at least a little while, even behind the scenes, to get himself polished, or are they going to rush him in as quick as they can and get him in for Mania?
Behind the scenes, I'd say definitely, yeah, that they will, just to get him accustomed to it. And it's not even just the wrestling in the ring. It's everything like, where the cameras are. You got to get used to all these new things. The reason they changed their mind on AJ, you asked me that, why now, like after he'd been in TNA so long? It's because it was TNA. There's a big difference between, having the Tokyo Dome rocking and rolling or having the Impact Zone rocking and rolling. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And perception-wise, you see a guy that can tear it down in the Tokyo Dome or a guy that can tear it down in the Impact Zone. It's a big difference. So, but yeah, with Nakamura, it's just too hard to call it. But what I will say is that the amount of money that it's costing to get him out of New Japan and bring him to WWE, I would
let
say.
him go to Florida for a month. He debuted the day after Mania, maybe.
Who knows? Like, I actually don't know, and that's really what makes this show so interesting, is we really have no idea where it goes. They could be brought into NXT and then brought up. They could be brought up right away. In terms of the Balor Club, which you brought up, Sean, Gallows, Anderson, AJ, and Balor, maybe. Tamatonga and Bad Luck Fale are also being rumored to possibly be coming in. Tamatonga, obviously.
I could not have called those two, honestly. If you said they were
Fale? No.
I just couldn't have picked it, but yeah.
To come into WWE?
Yeah.
Aren't they a better fit for WWE than for New Japan?
Oh, they are.
Young Bucks.
No, they're not coming in for that kind of money, though. Let's put it that way.
No, obviously.
But no.
Young Bucks, no?
No, they're tied up. They're tied up.
They're tied to ROH too.
Yeah, they got that awesome deal from ROH.
That's right.
And again, we're going to just go through the Wrestle Kingdom. We're going to sort of fly through it, and then we'll also just talk about sort of the ramifications of what happened on New Year's Dash, because that kind of shaped up things as well. But in terms of those guys, we don't know for sure they're coming. Tamatonga, obviously the son of the legendary King Tonga, who also had some New Japan TV time this week.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy. But anyways, so they could be coming in as well. So you'd have like pretty much the full Bullet Club.
And I read something. Doesn't Gallows have an indie promotion running in the South?
He does, and so that's another thing. But he runs it with his wife, so It might be a situation where the wife takes over and, quote unquote. And obviously Anderson still, when you live with your wife, you can still pretty much book the promotion even if you're not allowed to. And so the thing that stands right now is that those guys, AJ and Nakamura in particular, are coming in for big money. There was a lot of speculation and people within the company that did contact Uncle Dave and said, this may not happen now because it's out, but there was a plan to bring in some or all of these guys as surprises in the Royal Rumble this year. What do you guys think about that idea?
I don't think that's a great idea in a lot of ways. I mean, for the shock value, yeah, but then they have to get thrown out at some point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're right.
And if you bring in one of them, if you bring in AJ Styles, he comes down to the ring and people are going to recognize him and go and start chanting AJ Styles. You bring in Nakamura, and if that audience isn't tight enough to understand who he is, he's just this Japanese guy that they don't.
He becomes another guy.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The Royal Rumble audience. You don't think that when Nakamura comes out, that place is going to explode?
Well,
again, you have to understand why Nakamura is the guy too. Why he's been the guy that they've sort of targeted now. In a lot of ways, the show that we went to, Shan, Global Wars, and all the other tapings that they did for the ROH TV, and then the Wrestle Kingdom 9 being on North American pay-per-view. It was the best thing that ever happened to New Japan, and it was also the worst thing that ever happened to New Japan, because there was this huge exposure that wasn't out there before, that didn't know. Like if you had said this to me 2 years ago, or even a year ago, that Nakamura would come out and it would be like, who's this? I would agree. Now, no. People know it. And that Rumble audience is a hardcore audience.
Well, I get that, but if he comes out with Paul Heyman coming out and saying, ladies and gentlemen, Shinsuke Nakamura, the audience will go crazy. If they just play some music that's not Nakamura's music and he comes running out, like, the Rumble can be a confusing time when you've got people coming in. I just don't know if that's the way you want to showcase a new global superstar. Unless he comes in and makes a huge impact, and then who does he get put out by? Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. I don't know about that. Unless one of them wins it.
The thing is too, though, all you have to do is put a video on the screen. If he has a Titantron and they see Shinsuke Nakamura, again, the rest of the places they go and other shows I can understand maybe, but not the Rumble. And I'm not even saying
it is a bit of a different night.
It's a different crowd. I'm not even saying they should do it. I don't think they should. There's a way you could. With either of those guys or both. Both is going to be tricky, you're right. But if Nakamura came out, threw out a bunch of guys, faced off with who knows who, Brock, or I don't know who, anyone.
Ooh.
And then somehow his elimination had to do with his new pairing, and it was some kind of sort of screw job or something like that, whoever he's going to be paired with at Mania. You could do it. But I agree, this is not the ideal situation. And you're right, it can be very confusing anyways, just no understanding who's coming out. But if you played some music and you put the Titantron on the screen, that place goes nuts.
Well, the other question I have about, you were saying about Nakamura and Carl Anderson, I think.
Yeah.
Are tied to the end of January. Are they even available by the 24th?
No, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. Nakamura is booked on all of the, like right now what they do after Wrestle Kingdom is they do the whole CMLL crossover. They do what's called Fantastic Mania. And they do a few different shows on New Japan World, and it's like cross-promotional shows. And Nakamura's booked on all of them for this month.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
I don't think he's available for Royal Rumble.
No.
And that's probably a good thing. I mean, bring him in
agree.
after. Bring him
AJ.
in after. Bring AJ in at the Rumble.
Yeah.
And bring Nakamura in after.
Now, what do you do with AJ if you brought him in at the Rumble? Just maybe something like I said, like he looks good and then he gets paired off with somebody?
Balor.
Balor, yeah.
But see,
Balor.
I think AJ's bulletproof enough. The reaction he's going to get, he could dump a bunch of guys and get hit from behind by somebody and get put out and jump up and kind of get in their face and whatever. And I don't think it would hurt anything for him. I think the crowd would just
probably
want to
right.
see.
But let's get into the card, guys. We got to start to get through this here. Wrestle Kingdom 10. The version that you guys watched, did they have the Rumble in the pre-show, or did you have a version without the Rumble?
Yeah.
No, we got the Rumble match.
Rumble, just to sort of sum it up, it was terrible and completely entertaining. Was that the good way to put it?
I thought that was awesome. What are you talking? That was great.
No, exactly. It was great. It was entertaining. It was fun. It brought a smile to your face, but it was terrible, and that's okay. You know, that's the way I look at it. A lot of the same guys. I mean, with the New Japan Rumble, they've only done it now, I think, 2 years. You can be pinned in the Rumble. You can also be submitted. So there's, and disqualified in the case of Great Kabuki.
Yes.
So they had the same, a lot of the same guys that were in it last year, like the legends, like Kabuki was in there. What were you going to say, Sean? Go ahead.
How old is Kabuki?
He's old, man. He's got to be like 60. Fujiwara, who is well into his 60s. You had Koshinaka in there, and then, of course, King Tonga makes a very surprise appearance. The scariest.
Makes sense. Wearing a Bullet Club t-shirt.
Wearing a Bullet Club, supporting his son. And then also you had the surprise of Cheeseburger. A nice little treat, a cheeseburger.
That was fun.
And again, we're not going to go through the whole thing. We'll just say that the funniest part of probably the whole night was when Fujiwara, who, again, to our younger fans or those that didn't follow his career, he was kind of just known as a mean, old, crusty, evil guy that liked to torture you. He was a bit of a guy that Stu Hart would love.
Okay, here's the point I'm going to make to connect this. And they said this on the broadcast. We all have seen the Fujiwara armbar.
That's his. Yep.
He invented it.
He invented it, yes. So Fujiwara was always known as a gruff, mean, he loved to torture you. He was like a Minoru Suzuki type. And there was the moment in this thing, and everybody knows that Liger loves Cheeseburger. He just thinks Cheeseburger's the best thing. Like coming out of ROH, he was all those tours like that they did for the shows we saw. All he could talk about was Cheeseburger. My favorite guy is Cheeseburger, and everyone's like, Cheeseburger? So he loves Cheeseburger, and now Cheeseburger and his friendship with Liger is really paying off because he's at Wrestle Kingdom in the pre-show. But they did this thing where he was going around and shaking hands, and then Fujiwara put out his hand to shake. Yeah. And Cheeseburger goes to shake, and as he goes to shake, Liger grabs his other hand and is like, no, do not do that. Do not shake this man's hand because he is going to hurt you. And so you have that moment where it's a tug of war with Cheeseburger. Like Fujiwara's trying to pull him in and Liger's trying to pull him out. And you can just hear the audience just killing themselves laughing, you know. So anyways, the winner was Jado, who was the assistant booker. So, you know, to think that this stuff only happens in WWE, give your head a shake because it happens everywhere.
Had some Japanese singer with him who almost wanted to get in the match too.
Right. So did they explain that? Because I got to tell the people too, I did not listen to the English commentary for Wrestle Kingdom 10. So I'm going to have to lean on you guys for that side of this.
What they did was kind of say that yes, she was a big deal and she's a famous singer, and they were making more fun of the fact that she wanted to jump in the ring. Mm-hmm. Like she was ready to fight. Right.
So I was watching with the Japanese commentary because again, after that King of Pro Wrestling show, I just couldn't risk the idea of having them ruin my experience.
But they didn't do that this time.
No,
they were good this time.
I've heard they were good. And I saw them on New Year's Dash the next night, and actually you're right, they were quite good. So anyways, yeah, that whole thing happened. Jado won the Rumble. It's just a fun thing. There's nothing to it. It's not anything where you get some big title shot out of it. It's just something fun for a pre-show.
They almost put, it's like, here's a Legends match.
Right, and that was what it was. It's something to put a smile on the people's faces. And then there was this little performance.
Oh.
Wow, that was one of the weirder things I've ever seen. But
kind of glad I fast-forwarded through.
Yeah, I understand. And again, not to be culturally insensitive, I'm sure maybe in Japan it's the shit. But
well, I think it was promoting some Japanese anime movie.
It was, yeah, a movie, yeah. And again, that's something for the money. They're doing that for the money.
That's an advertiser.
That's an advertisement. I'll be honest, it was pretty trippy. I was tripping out a little bit.
Shane, did you see that?
I'll be honest, guys. I fast forwarded. I was hoping you wouldn't call me out, but I did. I was a little pressed on time, so I was
okay.
I was like, I'm not watching this. I gotta go.
No, I fast forwarded too. Don't feel bad.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's there to see really? You don't understand the language, and you've got this very flamboyant man in a loincloth. And then a little girl right beside him.
Yes.
Very strange. And then
it's like Japanese Flintstones or something.
Right, but I kind of wish I understood it because it did seem pretty interesting. But anyways, they did that. The crowd was sort of stunned, for the most of that. And then let's get into the show. It starts off. These dome shows, they're the akin to like, Sean, what's a band you've seen many times? Like Coldplay, right?
Coldplay. These would be Coldplay shows or like U2 shows, right. Or going by even Rolling Stones type of shows.
Right. So say like the Coldplay shows you've been to.
Yes.
You and Marlene are going there, and you're going to have fun. You're going to scream your head off.
Yes.
But you're not going to scream your head off for the opening act.
No.
You're going to preserve your voice.
For the later stuff.
And that's exactly the way these dome shows are. And sometimes and a lot of people on Twitter at the time were like, this crowd sucks, and, they're not reacting to anything and all this stuff. It's like, they really do pace themselves. And it sucks for the juniors a lot of time because they tend to always open the shows. But
had the best match.
Okay, so let's talk about the opener then.
Oh God, the opener was the. Am I getting this wrong? The tag match?
No, it was the 4-way tag. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm right with the Bucks and Roppongi and all that stuff.
Ricochet and Seidel and Red Dragon.
Oh my God.
I liked it better than last year's opener myself. I thought it was tremendous. Again, the crowd heat and sort of the emptiness of the building. You could definitely feel like there was not a lot of energy in the building for that match, but at home watching, I thought it was just tremendous. I mean, all those guys are so talented.
The 8-way suplex spot.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that one, Shan, before?
I have not. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Do you know what? Like, every time that they put one of these multi-team matches together, they throw so much stuff into it that even in my mind, I can't keep one match straight from the other. That's not an insult. It's just that they're so innovative and interesting. So I don't think I've seen that before, but it's, yeah, I don't know.
So anyways, the finish of this one, really we're playing up like Seidel and Ricochet were going to win. And Ricochet again did that, this time even more ridiculous. I mean, he ran and jumped to the middle of the rope, and did a shooting star to the outside on Cody Hall.
Yeah.
Last time he did that, he ran up the corner buckles, which that's a little more stability. This guy just runs and jumps to the top in the middle of the rope and does a shooting star. And so Seidel and Ricochet looked awesome, and they really played up at the end like they were going to be, the winners of the match and win the titles. But then the Bucks kind of got in there and stole it from them. So because they beat the Bucks in that Best of the Super Junior Tag Tournament, I'm thinking that they will be the first challenger. So that's going to be a fun program with the Bucks and Ricochet and Seidel.
And Super Kick Party did become a theme later in the night, too.
Yes, it sure did, and the next day. And so the Bucks win the belts for the 4th time. And again, part of me was kind of like, we've seen this, let's get some new blood. But again, the fact that they already have that built-in program with Ricochet and Seidel, I think that's fine, and that's good. And the Bucks are there; they're not going anywhere.
And that's why you do that.
So they won the belts from Red Dragon, and they with what's it called? Most bang for your buck, that finish. So that was cool. Next match, we'll just very quickly go through, was the Never 6-man title. I do defend New Japan in some ways for having so many belts because they do it in such a way where the belts are not always being defended on every show. It's like the only show that has every belt defended is Wrestle Kingdom. And it's kind of like a neat way to split up all the pay-per-views. You could have on one, you have the Intercontinental title be the main event and then the World Champions working underneath in a tag. Stuff like that. They find a good way around it. They do not need a 6-man title, though.
Very few promotions have ever needed a 6-man title.
I defend them on all the other belts, but they don't need to now add a 6-man too. So I wasn't too pleased with that.
But as a downer, they couldn't use the Briscoe music from ROH.
Oh, they couldn't use a lot of music, and that's obviously a huge downfall for New Japan World, is all the overdubbed music that they put in there. Some of it.
I like the Briscoes ROH music though.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, some of the overdub themes, they bring a smile to my face. It's not that they're good, they just bring a smile to my face. And that's good, because I don't get to smile that much. I'll take it, honestly, you know what, I'll take it over a lot of WWE themes too, because here's Kevin Owens' theme. Here's Dean Ambrose's theme. Like you could put, I watched those guys wrestle on SmackDown. There was like 2, maybe 4 notes in both of their themes combined. But anyway,
right.
Themes aside, next match, this was a mistake the way that they went about this. This was Jay Lethal's debut in New Japan and the Dome.
Yeah.
They only showed an interview for him, like a pre-taped interview leading up to this match. He did not appear on any of the tour. He just showed up at Wrestle Kingdom and defended his belt, and you really got to see, like, as good as Lethal is, these fans don't know him.
Well, the interesting thing was, I watched ROH from the weekend, and they actually mentioned, they promoted that New Japan match hard on the ROH TV.
Right, and the reason that that's being done is because ROH has a show coming in Japan soon.
Yes.
I don't remember when it is, but they're doing a show in Japan. And because they're partners, they're doing their best to make sure that they promote, their partner. So that's why you saw such a heavy presence of Ring of Honor. This match, again, nothing bad on the show. Felt like an ROH TV match in front of a Dome crowd.
A little bit longer, I thought.
A little bit longer. Elgin's a star there. They really like Elgin. And he's been really given the rub by Tanahashi. And you know what? For that reason alone, I feel like they should have maybe put the belt on him in the Dome. Otherwise, I don't really understand why they did that match at all, other than, I guess, like I said, to promote. So this match didn't get over.
No.
But like I said, a lot of these matches didn't, because these crowds are not like that. They really do pace themselves, and by the end of the show, they certainly were rocking and rolling. Next up on the show was a match that I adored. Kushida versus Kenny Omega.
Oh, good.
Sean, do you want to handle the introduction of
Oh
Kushida?
my gosh, the Kushida introduction. And I was totally thinking, okay, the best really is Marty McFly from Back to the Future. They had the Time Splitters logo, looking like Back to the Future. Taguchi, dressed like Doc Brown. Full garb.
He was awesome.
He really was. I mean, that was a great
DeLorean
comedy
controls,
spot.
too. Complete with the DeLorean joystick in the movies.
And the eyes.
The eyes. Oh.
And the thumb, when he gave him the big thumbs up when he was coming down. Oh, Taguchi was so great.
Oh my god.
So yeah, he was in Kushida's corner. And again, it's like when you tell somebody this, it seems like it would just be ridiculous, but it worked. And the Bucks were out there to screw with Kushida, like they always are, and Taguchi was there to sort of even up the odds, and he did. Kenny Omega had a little bit of a Terminator intro. They played the Terminator theme, and then into his music, which is phenomenal music. And he came out. The Bucks were playing the Terminator dun-dun-dun-dun-dun on the cans.
Yeah.
On the garbage cans.
So yeah, this was a tremendous match. Both guys are incredible. Kenny Omega, who's going to get a bit more talk here in a minute. Just, there's something about that guy in the ring. And Kushida too, but I mean, when I watch Kenny, sometimes you can't really explain what makes a guy special other than to say he has that special snap to his moves.
He has it.
He's something special, there's no question about it. And
he's hateable.
Oh,
he is so hateable. Like, he's not the cool heel where you hate him, but you really love him. Yeah, he's just, you hate him.
Oh, God,
well, here's the point. I'm watching the match, and every time Kushida kicked his arm, because that was the story, was working over Kenny. Every time Kushida kicked Kenny, I'm like, yes.
I thought he did an awesome job of selling the arm, even giving Kushida a one-armed powerbomb. I thought that was pretty amazing. He got him up for the big sit-out powerbomb, and he didn't even use his bad arm at all. Just let it hang. But in the end, Kushida ends up getting the win. The finish at the time I thought was a little bit screwed up, and clearly, like, Kenny's shoulders weren't down. But that kind of worked out for the way everything turned out the next night, because Kenny really didn't get beat. And so we'll talk about that again in just a few minutes here. We'll go through this card quickly. So again, great junior match, and Kushida wins the belt back in the Dome, so that's kind of cool. I always felt like he was the guy they should really be building around with that division. And Kenny's too big to be a junior. Again, we'll talk about that in just a second. Sorry, next up was GBH, Hanma and Togi Makabe, taking on the Bullet Club members, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. Again, a really good tag match, I thought.
Can I bring up an aside as Anderson and Gallows were coming up? Anderson, I watched this after all the WWE stuff had broke. And the reason I bring that point up is you can hear all the audible English
Oh, yeah.
from the wrestlers. And I'm thinking, they're going to go to WWE, and every third word as they both walked to the ring was like F-bomb.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to bring up Carl Anderson's tights.
No, well, that too.
Because he did have the Finn Balor teeth on the tights there.
He did, but I'm thinking WWE is a family product.
Oh, yeah.
And every third word out of Carl Anderson and Gallows was F-bomb.
Well, geez, they have a podcast on the MLW radio network that has just been mysteriously discontinued over the last week. Wink, wink. And I wouldn't be surprised if all of those archives are wiped out, because those guys, if you want to talk about things that'll come back to haunt you, geez, they say some things on that show that are going to get you in trouble in a PG world. Not like racist stuff or anything like that, but just, they get pretty raw with it. So yeah. But again, really good. There's an actual like mainstream media story going on with Hanma right now in Japan. He is being accused of domestic violence against his, I think it's his girlfriend he's lived with for over 10 years. There was a lot of problems with this girl. By no means, I have no idea who's at fault or who's not. All I know is that there had been a long history of violence and alcoholism with this girl leading up to this. New Japan, it seems as though they're backing Hanma on this. They're not suspending him. They're not doing anything. He has said he's innocent and that he was the one being beaten on anytime he did put his hands on her was out of self-defense. But it is a big story right now. So I was a little surprised that right now Hanma is given a belt, his first belt, by the way, in New Japan ever. But then when you think about the Bullet Club guys, I guess it only made sense. You had to get those belts off of them. I liked the match. Again, it wasn't like one of the big focal points, but it was a good damn tag match. I'll tell you that much.
It had a feel-good ending, too.
Feel-good ending, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it came down to, was sort of the last few minutes of that match, and that sold it.
Saturday Naito Fever, ladies and gentlemen.
We're going to talk about this, okay.
The entrance of Tetsuya Naito as he goes into the ring to take on Haruki Goto. It wasn't officially announced, but I think everybody kind of figured out this is like a number one contenders match. So, and it was in the end. But Naito's entrance was something else, I tell you. This whole Los Ingobernables thing is starting to really, really grow on me. Now that Bushi has joined, and Bushi again was he really was just kind of your very bland luchador babyface wrestler, and then now he's turned heel and he's got the mist, and he's actually doing really good. Evil with the lasers.
Evil.
I'm still warming up to him, but I don't know. I'm starting to really like that faction, and Naito, his entrance was tremendous. The white suit, the big fuzzy red mask or whatever he had on.
It was like somewhere between like Iron Man and Saturday Night Fever. I don't know what's going on there.
Saturday Naito Fever, baby. And this was the sleeper of the night, in my opinion. This was the match that had very little buzz, but yet was just tremendous.
It was so good.
So good. Naito is just an awesome heel. The Whammy Award-winning Naito, might I add.
That's right.
He proved why he was the Performer of the Year for 2015. Anything you guys want to say about this match before we move on? I thought it was really good, but Goto getting the win with the Shotenkai finish there on Naito, which was surprising. But what did you guys...
I was surprised Goto won, to be honest, because I've kind of felt like Naito was going to take it, just because of the way that he'd been positioned. I don't think it hurt Naito at all. So maybe that was the right way to go. But it wasn't a match where you could really find any complaints, I don't think, looking back.
And that's a good point you bring up, is that it doesn't hurt Naito. And I think that's why it happened. I think that they felt that, if Goto loses again, then it is going to hurt Goto as a babyface. Whereas Naito, he can come out the next night as his, heel persona, and he can really get away with it and get his heat back. He's so good. So I think that really was the mentality there behind that, was like, we gotta protect Goto, and Naito's not going to be hurt. And to be honest, like, Goto's the next challenger, and I think Naito's like the down the road big show challenger.
Yeah.
So that's kind of probably another reason. I think Naito will be the champion before the year is over. But so another great match, and again, it was a number one contenders match. Goto now the number one contender for the IWGP heavyweight title. Did they talk about that at all on commentary or no?
On the English commentary, it was more about telling the story about how Naito has been disrespectful and Goto is standing up for New Japan and what's right and all those kind of things. It wasn't so much the title was never. They actually promoted it as the one match on the show that didn't have a belt in it.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, and it was. Again, they did not need that 6-man belt. But anyway, the next match, if you're watching the show for the first time and you got a bit of a migraine, pause the show now. Pause the show after the Goto match. You do not want to watch.
I actually did.
Good. I think that's the best way to watch. This was a long show, and they always
Sections.
are. Yeah, you got to break this thing up. Not me. I was able to handle it because I watched it live, and it was a big event for me. But if you're watching it, at home, best way to do it to keep yourself fresh is to take breaks. So hopefully everybody did that, but definitely pause if you got a migraine before you get to the next match, because if you do, you're going to be running to the toilet vomiting by the end of this one. Katsuyori Shibata versus Tomohiro Ishii in the Dome.
Oh, this was fun.
Bell rings and this shit is on. They did not wait to get it on for this one. Shan, you're an Ishii guy, so I want to obviously pick your brain on this one.
As an Ishii guy, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm desensitized. I still get affected by it. But you come to expect it, honestly, in an Ishii match. It's going to be extremely violent. It's going to look like people are getting, mauled. And that's exactly what it was. It delivered on that level.
And there's nobody besides Brock Lesnar, I think, that really present themselves as a badass the way that Shibata does. Yeah. He's just got that bad man persona down, and a phenomenal match. I mean, you can make the criticisms you will about the headbutts and all that stuff, and I completely agree. What did you think, Sean?
I loved this. This match was a fight. It was not a wrestling match. It was not, oh, you're happy here, we're going to do a headlock. No, it was a fight. I thought it was awesome. Mm-hmm. You don't see that anywhere now.
And Ishii's known as the guy that can take the hardest hit, and Shibata's known as the guy who gives the hardest hit. So it's the perfect combination there. Ishii's got a new theme song, which is badass. One of the real badass themes in New Japan right now. So I love that with the dogs barking and the sirens. That's perfect for him. And then, it's just a few cool things that happened in the match. I love the whole thing of like the one-upsmanship of sitting down and saying, kick me in the back, and then he kicks on the back and then, it reaches that point with Ishii where he can no longer pretend that it doesn't hurt.
Well, but you watch it and I like I said, I like the violence, but there are points where I'm watching it going, you start cringing.
But the thing is, too, like, a lot of people just will sort of misconstrue what they do as just a bunch of hitting really hard and no selling, and that's not true. Like they told an awesome story there, and when it was time for Ishii to sell, he sold, but he's a tough guy. He doesn't sell on every punch. He can take it. I love when Shibata's hitting him with those forearms, and Ishii, after taking a huge beating in the corner, he just starts pushing his head forward every time. So he's going to forearm him, and Ishii's pushing his head forward, and Shibata's actually moving backwards from him being the guy throwing the forearm. So again, so much cool shit that they did in this one. I loved when Shibata got knocked down and did the kip up and forearmed him right in the face. You could go on and on and on. The headbutts sound horrible, but one thing you do have to bring up about the headbutts, as much as they look awful, nobody's bleeding.
Thank God.
Nobody's bleeding.
It's true.
Nobody is losing their teeth. I think Ishii had a tiny bit of blood coming out of his mouth by the end. But, there's clearly something that they're doing to protect each other in these matches, or else they would have black eyes, and they would have busted heads, and they would have missing teeth.
Bruises and all kinds of things.
I think it's the perfect example of hitting a guy really hard in the right places.
You just missed William Regal line.
Right. But anyways, at the end of the day, Shibata wins. He gets the penalty kick on Ishii. And he wins the belt, so I think that's a good thing. Shibata's ready for an elevation, I would say. He's been ready for a while, and this was the perfect match to really set that off, and a whole bunch of fresh matches now that can happen with him as that champion. So, great match, awesome.
And where does Ishii go coming out of that?
Where does Ishii go? I think Ishii needs to be floating in that IC mix right now. I think it's time for Ishii to move on from the Never belt. I think he's going to fight him one more time at the next, the New Beginning show, one of the New Beginning shows in February. But after that, it's time for him to move on to something else because he's so talented. He's so much more than just a bruiser. You know what I mean? He's got a lot of talent, and I'd love to see him work with some different kinds of guys. So we'll see where he goes, but I think he needs to go into that IC mix, especially with Shinsuke, stepping out of that. So next up, last two matches, AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Going into this match, a lot of people had really said, and I had been hearing he had a herniated disc in his back. He was clearly very hurt during the tag tournament because he had to take all those shows off, and they wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have screwed with Gato's booking just to kayfabe people. So he was hurt enough to have to miss matches in Japan, and that means you're hurt. He came and wrestled the match with Jay Lethal. Shan, I know you loved that match, and so did I. And I couldn't believe how good he looked in that match. But you could tell he was wincing a lot more. You could see it in his face. He was in a lot more pain.
Yeah.
This match with Nakamura, I thought he looked great.
I thought he did too. What is the official medical diagnosis?
Nobody knows. And what does that mean to him being hired by WWE?
Well, that's the thing. I was wondering, with all these guys out with injuries, they're going to hire a guy now who's already injured? It must say something for what they saw out of him in those two matches in particularly.
All these guys could get signed today, and not make the main roster or not ever show up on TV because they don't pass the medical.
Yeah.
And with Daniel Bryan, I mean, we talked about him earlier in the show. The guy's had like 20 concussions, and that's why he's not getting cleared right now. And it's a litigation thing. So as desperate as they get, or as like, we need something, they're not just going to I don't think they're just going to pull him out and say, yeah, well, we can't get him cleared, and we have all this like worry of litigation, but we need something for the Rumble. You know, I just don't see that happening. So as far as all these guys, Nakamura too, he had a real serious elbow injury there recently. So can all these guys get cleared medically? We don't know. But again, we'll find out all this in the coming weeks. Yeah. But this match was just awesome. There was the one moment where AJ got pulled off the middle rope and landed on his back, and he had this awful face on. And you could tell that Red Shoes is down there like talking to him, and you could read his lips. He's saying, you know, it happened again.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
shit.
can hear it on the mic.
He said, oh, shit, it happened again. And he had that look of like, uh-oh, he can't get up. And then, of course, he pops right up.
So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't help but wonder as I watched, you know, how much of this was him kind of playing with our understanding that he was hurt going in. You know, how much of it was him maybe overselling stuff that wasn't as bad as it seemed just because he knew it would build the drama of the match. So.
Oh, and it certainly did. They really pulled the story of that back. And, I mean, all kinds of damage that would happen to his back. But, I mean, this guy was doing pretty much everything he's ever done. It was the first match these two have ever had. It lived up to the expectations.
And they hyped that like crazy, that this was the first singles match that they'd ever had.
Oh, yeah. Their video packages are amazing. I can't even get over how great their video packages are. Not just the one that started the show, which I love, where they take you through every match in order and quickly give you, this is what's happening tonight. I love that. But even like the way they shoot their promo packages. It's just amazing. Why does WWE just have some fucking thing behind it? Why is it so boring and so drab looking? Like, you could do so much cool shit with your pre-packages. And I think, if anything, they should be inspired by New Japan to try that. But anyway, great. I mean, what can you really say? They hit everything. Huge Bomaye to the back of AJ's head. And at the end of the day, AJ Styles, he hit the Styles Clash, the one-arm Styles Clash there out of the flying armbar, but never got the full Styles Clash. And
I think they can always hold that back. I mean, I know those guys are not going to wrestle there again,
no.
But you know, if they have to tell that story again, at least you have that history that it didn't. AJ never really landed his finisher. You know, and you're probably going to take exception to this, and no disrespect to Tanahashi and Okada, but this was the main event of the night for me. Going back and watching it, as much as I love the actual main event, this match took my breath away, and a lot of it was the hype. And a lot of it was the fact that I love both these guys. But this was the match that for me was the focal point of that whole show.
No exception taken. Whatever one is your flavor, that's all fine and dandy. Shinsuke wins the match with the Bomaye on AJ, and that was it. And then they actually did the respect thing at the end, and they bumped fists and everything like that. But so that was that. And the reason I rate the Tanahashi-Okada match higher is just because of the long-term story of these guys and the way that it all played into this match. My favorite moment of all of Wrestle Kingdom was the moment in this match where they had traded each other's finishers. They even, I think Okada even did the high fly flow. Tanahashi did the Rainmaker. And we're getting into this match. And again, the story of the match being that Tanahashi and Okada have had this rivalry since 2011. And Tanahashi has never lost to Okada in the Dome. It's like the WrestleMania thing. You can beat me all year long, but you can't beat me on the most important show of the year. And that was kind of the Undertaker thing. And that was sort of the story here, was that you can beat me at other times of the year, but when it comes down to it, when it's Super Bowl time, you're not beating me. And that's what happened year after year. So finally they have this match, and Tanahashi is saying, I'm going to make Okada cry again, right? I'm going to beat Okada in front of the world again, and I'm going to bring more attention to the sport of wrestling. And they go in there. My favorite moment of this whole damn show was as they got through and they were trading all the finishers, and Okada went for the Rainmaker, spins him around for the Rainmaker. Tanahashi slaps Okada, and it looks like that was the counter. But then as you get a zoom in, you realize Okada didn't let go of Tanahashi's arm. And it zooms in on Okada holding Tanahashi's wrist. He didn't let go. He won't let go. And then, of course, he hits him with a few more Rainmakers, and this was the match. I just thought this match was like artistry. And this is one I'm going to watch over and over again because I'm just kind of in awe. Of all their matches, I feel like this was their best.
Well, and to think about that you've just done a 5-year build.
Right.
That is crazy.
And the other thing that needs to be referenced is the fact that in New Japan, it really gets hammered home that you can be the champion, but you're not the ace. That's the word they love to use. Ace, ace, ace. Tanahashi's the ace. And he even said to Okada, yeah, you're the champion, but I'm the ace. And this was the match where, you know, in storyline anyway, Tanahashi was being sort of dethroned, and Okada was being, you know, crowned the new ace. You know, will that work out as well as they want it to work out? Who knows? Tanahashi is much more popular than Okada, and he's just an all-around bigger celebrity than Okada. But they want to now make Okada the guy, and Tanahashi's winding down, and his body, a year from now, he may not be able to have these matches. 2 years from now, he probably won't. So who knows where things are going to go with Tana from here. But this was definitely the crowning of Okada, and just a tremendous main event. But I take no exception. I mean, whatever your preference was of these three matches, that's just up to personal taste, in my opinion.
I really will need to go back and watch it again. It's like a good movie or a good book. You can always go back to it.
Absolutely.
And find something else that was really good about it, or something that you didn't catch the first time, or the second time, or the fifth time, depending on your choice of viewing. And just the emotion in that match was just off the chart.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's just one of those things that long-term builds can do. Like, I mean, they have been kept apart for so long, for a year. And again, Okada, for his age, he's just so damn seasoned, and he's just worked with the best guys. And he's now the artist, much like Tanahashi and Nakamura and AJ and all these guys. They're just four artists that are just able to paint these beautiful pictures. And this was another one, and just a great story told. So Okada, feel-good moment, finally gets his moment and beats Tanahashi with the Rainmaker. Tanahashi does not do any kind of like shit to downplay it or to cheapen it in any way. He gets carried out pretty much. And that was that. And Okada is the new ace, at least in storyline. Quickly, just to talk about sort of what happened on New Year's Dash, and then we'll get into a bit of the WWE news before we head out of here. New Year's Dash was the show the very next day, and they always do this. It's like the Raw after WrestleMania. A huge angle. There was a match between AJ Styles and Kenny Omega versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Yoshihashi, which a lot of people probably thought Yoshihashi will take the pin. In the end, Kenny Omega dominated Shinsuke Nakamura in the end of that match, hit him with some of the most brutal knees I've ever seen, and hit him with the knee, gave him the reverse Rana, and put him up for the one-winged angel, and Kenny Omega pins Shinsuke Nakamura clean in the middle of the ring, clearly setting up the next IC defense. And then, so that's happening. I'm already marking out. I'm actually in the midst of typing Shan at the moment, or typing you guys at the moment.
Yeah.
And then as I'm saying it, this thing's happening on my screen, and I'm like, okay, so Kenny just beat Nakamura. That's pretty crazy. Holy shit. And then that wasn't the end of it, because AJ Styles goes up to the second rope to celebrate, and sneaks up behind him, gives AJ Styles the one-winged angel, flips his lid, and beats the crap out of him, and the Young Bucks end up coming out. And they sort of break it up for a minute, and then Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson and Cody Hall all come out, and they kind of are tending to AJ. And before you know it, triple super kick from the Bucks and Omega on AJ. And then it looks like those guys are pissed, but then they join in, and everybody beats the hell out of AJ Styles. This angle got over huge. Did you guys at least see that angle?
I did see it, and it was a really nice way to tie up the talent that was, at least the main talent that was going to be leaving, in that it took AJ out of the Bullet Club and kind of gave Kenny his boost to take that place, and also had Kenny get the win over Nakamura, so you can build in that way. I thought it was really well done, and I can see why it got over huge. I don't know, at that point, did everyone know what was going on?
By that point, yeah. I mean, everyone within the company or in the audience?
Well, I just in the audience. Audience.
That's interesting, because when he hit, Nakamura is so popular. But when Omega hit the one-winged angel, that place went nuts. And they all chanted 1, 2, 3. They were going crazy. So it almost made me feel like the audience was already like, okay, we love these guys, but they're leaving us. And Kenny is our guy, so we're behind him. They went nuts for him winning. And then when he turned on AJ, they went nuts. The crowd knew by that point. Yeah, the crowd definitely knew. I mean, we all knew. The thing is, we all knew. So they clearly all knew. And so that happened, and I just gotta say, man, that Gato is something special, because this guy is under duress. He's had this bomb dropped on him the night before. He's got his whole year of plans that he's now gotta rewrite. And most bookers under that pressure throw just a bunch of shit against the wall. This guy in 24 hours came up with that angle, came up with a whole bunch of other angles. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things on that show, too, where you could see there's this whole new direction. They're moving guys up. There's going to be some fresh matches, some fresh challengers. And this guy just, I mean, he continues to impress me. When the chips are down, he's able to pull out such good shit. And that was a classic angle. So for people worried about New Japan because of this raid,
maybe not so much.
You don't need to worry about New Japan. You have to remember, this company's been around for 44 years. And this isn't the first raid, the first raid of WWE, but there was the time when Hiroshi Hase, a legendary wrestler, now part of the Japanese Parliament, he orchestrated a raid where he would take himself, Keiji Muto, Satoshi Kojima, and Kendo Kashin. They all jumped to All Japan all together, and there was big stars. New Japan have always found a way to survive. And they've always found a way to come back. And, I mean, they've been more popular over the last little while than they have in ages. The last 3 years. I mean, you guys know. I mean, we went to the Ring of Honor show. I mean, the New Japan guys were more over than the Ring of Honor guys. So this company's not going anywhere. You have a really smart booker. You have a ton of great talent. And now the other thing we haven't even talked about, now there's a bunch of spaces. And now there's also, like, room in the budget. So you can start thinking about who you might want to bring over. Because Nakamura, AJ, that's 2 big paychecks you don't have to give out anymore. But it is going to be a really interesting time to see where guys get moved up and who gets moved up and who's the focus. And Kenny Omega versus Shinsuke, I mean, if that's Shinsuke's farewell, the battle of the eccentrics, I'm excited for that one.
It could be interesting. And, the nice thing about New Japan is that they've always kept their top talent, or at least the guys in the top third, pretty close together, pretty believable that they could beat one another. The pecking order wasn't that far spaced apart. So whoever they do have ready to move up, it isn't going to seem kind of jolting. Yeah, it's not going to seem out of place to move those guys up.
It's not like in WWE, say, where you all of a sudden bring up Sheamus.
Yeah, yeah.
Where 1 week he's like comedy job boy, and then the next day he's the world champion. You don't have that. You're right. You don't have that. And again, for the Shibatas, for the Ishis, for the Kenny Omegas, the way I see things is that Kenny Omega is going to win the IC belt, and then Kota Ibushi is eventually going to return, and that's going to be the big program for next year's Dome is Kenny and Kota. And then finally Kota's going to win that belt. So that's, I mean, you got to remember he's going to be coming back eventually. And then you've got these spaces. And it would be really weird if now that Shinsuke Nakamura is in WWE, Daniel Bryan ends up leaving. But if he can't wrestle, he's going to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, if WWE won't legally let him wrestle, he's just going to end up in New Japan anyways.
Right, he's going to wait out his contract. I don't know when that will be, but he's going to wait out that contract, and, he's going to end up in New Japan. There's no doubt about that. And
He's already said it.
Right, which is irresponsible, too. I mean, if he can't get cleared, he can't get cleared. And there's a reason he can't get cleared. And he's going to go and work in New Japan and kill himself there. I mean, it is irresponsible, but at the same time, I mean, it's going to happen. I'm just giving you a heads up there. But
let's see by the end of this month. We may have a better idea of what's going on.
The legal issue is, he's had doctors clear him.
He's had his own doctor clear him. He has not had the WWE doctors clear him.
Yes.
The WWE doctors are probably being monitored and briefed by the WWE lawyers, saying, are we clear or are we 150% clear? Because we need to be 150%
and then you go back to the
clear.
CM Punk issue, which we haven't talked about in a while, but I'm sure that plays a part in WWE's legal decision too.
Just before we get out of here, guys, there's more news regarding the WWE side of things.
And this is big. This is big news.
Really big news. It has huge ramifications on everything going forward. And we talk about Gato having to, rewrite his whole year. WWE is doing some pretty heavy rewriting right now as well, because it was announced that John Cena will be having shoulder surgery and will likely. We know this guy has incredible recuperative powers.
He's Wolverine or something.
However, right now on paper, it appears that John Cena will be out of WrestleMania due to this surgery. Whoever wants to jump in, go ahead. I don't know what to make of it right now.
Okay, here's what I think we have in Shannon. I look at this and go, oh my God, they're screwed. You have the biggest WrestleMania ever, and there's a laundry list of guys that you wanted on that show that are either not cleared in the case of Daniel Bryan, or legitimately still injured in the case of 6 or 7 top guys.
We've talked about this before, Sean, and I'm going to reiterate it now. There's a time, where WWE has to pay for the sins of the past, and this is the time when it happens. You have had guys that you could have brought up. You've had guys that the audience demanded you bring up, and you've rejected it or turned your nose up at it and went in a different direction, and now you find yourself going into WrestleMania with really a very thin number of top-ish guys to fill that card. I know they were talking about doing Cena and Undertaker at Mania. That's obviously off the table, and I've been critical of them rolling Taker out every year too, because I think his luck's going to run out eventually. But this year they're going to have to probably lean on him heavily, I would think, and Brock and whoever else they can dredge up. I don't know if they're going to start throwing money at Rock and start throwing money at Austin, trying to tempt them out, or even Michaels.
Well,
trying
Rock
to
said
tempt
he's
them
going to
out.
be there, but he's not going to work. But the other question is, too, you talked about the bringing guys up. Even some of the guys they want to bring up are hurt. In the case of Cesaro, Tyson Kidd's still hurt. And look at what you don't have. No Cena, no Bryan, no Rollins, no Orton.
But you do have guys that, what I would really ultimately like to see, and I know this isn't good for business, and I know this isn't what they want, but for them to sit down and go, you know what, we're screwed, and let's take the guys we want to be a big deal and present them as a big deal, and build, using this WrestleMania, to build superstars. Take Finn Balor and put him in a big match, even if he's the NXT champion or he drops it or whatever. Do the same with Samoa Joe. Do that with anybody that you can get that you want to be a big deal. Present them as a big deal. Put in whatever you can to kind of draw. But when you've lost this many guys, I think you got to kind of make a best, do a kind of a best scenario that you can. And I think really using this to build those guys that need to come up. At this point, Bray Wyatt should be one of the top heels in the company, and he still just kind of floats around in the upper mid card. This might be a time to really establish that, Bray Wyatt is a huge heel.
Well, let's talk about never mind WrestleMania. You're dealing with Royal Rumble in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You've now booked the Royal Rumble match as the world title match.
Yeah.
Do you have 30 bodies?
Yeah, bodies.
Do they
And
have
the Royal Rumble these last few years has only been about bodies. It hasn't been about star power.
Yeah. But now you have you put the world champion in the match. You've said the world title's on the line, and you don't have enough credible challengers to make any of us believe that Roman is not somehow going to win that match.
Right.
Exactly. Who have you got? You've got Brock, you've got Ambrose, you've got Owens.
You've got Sheamus. You got in their mind. He keeps on getting matches with him, so
The rumor I heard, and I read this the other day as I was getting it, is we haven't seen Triple H on TV since TLC.
You're right, Sean. I know.
Triple H comes in and wins.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. Honestly, I think Triple H is going to win the Rumble, and then it's going to be him defending against Reigns. Yeah. It's going to be something where he's like number 30. Triple H is number 30, and
nobody's
with a sledgehammer.
Clears the ring out, and
Listen, this WWE thing isn't going to get fixed overnight. I think it's time to do some different things. And that's why whenever people are automatically saying, well, AJ and Nakamura, they're just going to be relegated to the mid-card and they're going to be on the first match of the show and all this stuff. We're not talking about the WWE of even 3 years ago. We're talking about the WWE of 2016, which is completely bare. They don't have a whole lot of hoops to jump through to be at the top of the card right now. All they got to do is come in and get a big reaction and have the crowd behind them. I think the best thing you could do right now for the WWE, because they need to just go fuck themselves with all the heel authority shit, first of all. The League of Nations is a joke. It's a joke. Those guys...
Well, even Barrett's hurt, too.
And they have no chemistry. Those three guys have no chemistry together. So I think you got to put that thing to bed. I think you got to rescue Del Rio out of that fiery wreckage. And the best thing you could do right now to really stir things up and to get the fans like myself that have kind of, to be honest with you, really tuned out of WWE lately. I don't even tape it anymore. I go on the internet, I see the things I need to see, and that's it. I don't watch the show because it's boring and it's nothing's going on. I think you do a full-on Bullet Club invasion at the top of the card.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen until
Why?
the WrestleMania.
Why?
Because they don't have all the guys under contract yet.
No, I'm not saying tomorrow. I'm saying once they're out of their deals and they're contractually free, which is by the end of January, you start the Bullet Club invasion on the main roster, and they beat the hell out of Roman Reigns. They beat the hell out of the League of Nations, and you go full on with this thing. Because,
Agreed.
this thing is hot on an indie level and on an underground level. it would take very little for this thing to be hot on a mainstream level too, because these guys do have chemistry. It is something like, it's cool. People like it. It's cool. And you need fresh faces. I mean, look at the Shield, guys. The Shield coming in as fresh faces and pushed to the very top of the card was the best thing they've done in 5 years.
Boy, I agree.
Because immediately you had 3 new guys that the crowd didn't necessarily know, and they were automatically shot to the top. And because they were new and nobody knew them and they hadn't been beaten down for 5 years, it was believable, you know. And with the Bullet Club, it's believable. Whether AJ and Finn are both in that group, whether AJ is not in that group, I don't know. I mean, I think I would go on at the beginning anyway, full out with everybody, and just have it be a big-time Bullet Club invasion. And again, take out all the top guys and really do the whole Shield treatment with these guys.
I'm fine with that. And if they can get everybody in there. But I mean, I think it needs to be more than AJ, Balor, and Gallows and Anderson. I mean, it seems like
there needs to be one WWE guy in there.
Yeah, there needs to be something a little bit bigger than that. I don't know.
Who would that be, though? Well, we don't have anybody.
Well, the guy I would pick is hurt, so I can't.
Who's the guy you'd pick?
Cesaro.
But what does that do? You know, does that make them more credible because Cesaro's there? I think that makes them less credible.
I guess my thing is that you have AJ and you have Finn, who are kind of like premier guys, and then you have Gallows and Anderson, who are kind of not premier guys. I guess it works.
Yeah. I think Balor as the face of it, because people know him already. I mean, he's got toys out in the stores, for God's sake.
He is a WWE guy now, so I mean,
he's a WWE guy. He was the original leader of the Bullet Club.
And you could tell the story.
Right? Or you could have something where the Bullet Club comes back and targets Balor. But I think that when those guys come in, it's going to be beside him.
Yeah.
And we want to bring Balor up. What better way to do it than to have this group that's sort of his heater, right? And they can get everything done for him. And Anderson is a great talker. AJ has become a pretty darn good talker. And Balor is quite a good talker. This thing, I don't think it would take very much for that thing to come in and get over. And again, sometimes it's monkey see, monkey do with an audience. You know, you may not know who they are, but you're watching the guy beside you go nuts when they come out, when they debut. And that energy fills into you, and you think, okay, well, cool, everyone's excited. I don't know why, but I'm excited too, you know. And the Shield thing, like I said, that was like one of the best things WWE's done in ages in terms of debuting 3 new guys at the very top. I think it's time to do it again. You need some fresh faces. You need some over guys. And you need freshness, you need buzz, and WWE's clearly not shying away from the buzz now that they're actually sharing the story about these guys possibly coming.
I am curious to think, though, that if they're going to put that on their own website, that the ink might be dry in some contracts more than we think.
It's not, because the reason they did that, and this is the mentality with the company now, is if a story gets out, they're going to make sure all the traffic goes to them. And that was all this was. They didn't want everybody else getting the traffic because of their store, because of what's going on in their company. So that's why they put that thing up there, so that everybody's coming to their site to look at it. And they feel like they're in control of the narrative. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So that's really what that is. Has AJ signed? I don't know. But he could have, because he's free. Gallows, he could have, but you know, he's free. The other 2, because of tampering issues, no, they haven't. But, you know, it's going to be fucking interesting, guys. We're just going to be able to have amazing podcasts for the next little while.
It's going to be a fun 4 or 5 months.
From now till Mania, it's going to be something else. I don't know.
Agree.
I don't know where things are going to land.
Well,
but
and hey, Brock is on TV next week, and so we'll see.
The other interesting thing being that Shinsuke's contract ends at the end of January. He's doing all those Fantastica Mania shows. He's mostly in multi-man matches with other luchadors and stuff. The next big pay-per-view is New Beginning, which is they're doing one on the 11th and one on the 14th, and his contract will be up by then. So this match with Kenny Omega, when is it going to happen? Or does Shinsuke show up on WWE TV with the Intercontinental title?
No.
Why not? I mean, I guess except for the whole problems they ran into with Flair and all that, you know?
And especially if they're not on good terms right now, you're not going to let that happen.
No, but I mean, what if... It's true. But you never know. They did it before. They got in trouble. They had to blur it out. With Ric Flair's title. I just get that.
They would have to make peace.
Not necessarily, because you can do it in an NWO way where you never actually fully say these are WWE guys.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The possibilities are endless, guys. Anything you want to say before we hit the bricks?
I'm just, as we build toward Mania, it's not just that we're going to have a lot of fun podcasts. I'm just, as a wrestling fan, kind of excited to see how they scramble to put everything together and how things shake up within WWE and within New Japan. I mean, we're going to be able to watch both sides of this as everything gets reshuffled, and that's cool. I mean, I'm a real sucker these days anyway for some kind of major changes, and we've got that coming now. So
on both sides, you're right.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to see both sides and how they are able to adjust to all these changes. So, Sean, any closing words?
Like Shan, I am very excited to see what happens. I like the uncertainties to a certain point. Usually we go into Rumble knowing what's going to happen, and this year we don't.
Yeah, I think it's because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, very true. And also on the New Japan side, I read that they're going to be doing a little more English commentary, which for me, just for an understanding purpose, I'm excited for that too.
But for me, I mean, of course, I'm a little bit hurt that these guys are leaving, and Shinsuke is not an easy guy to replace. I mean, they're not going to just all of a sudden have another Shinsuke Nakamura in New Japan. So there is going to be a bit of a charisma void there for a little while. There's nobody that's going to be able to fill that right now. But in time, I think they'll be able to have somebody. Naito is a guy that springs to mind as somebody that could sort of take that role as the most charismatic guy in New Japan and sort of bring the personality to the shows a little more. But, I mean, I love these guys so much, and I wish them nothing but the best. If you think we're scared about how they're going to be used, how do you think they feel?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know, this whole thing's a risk. And Nakamura did have an interview in Tokyo Sports this week where he said, I want to take on the challenge of a global audience. And WWE's the way to do it. And I believe in my heart, if given even half of a chance, he's going to do it. I don't think you need to change too much. I just think you need to figure out how to make it work in a WWE environment. So again, guys, these guys deserve it. They deserve the big money. They deserve to be, in the case of AJ, closer to their children and all that stuff. So we wish them nothing but the best. And we'll be back again to cover all of the happening in the wild, wacky world of pro wrestling. So for myself, from Shotgun Shan, peace, love. This has been Super Show 8, and Sean Cunningham, you tell him the rest.
Wrestling Audio Revolution.